1, 2, 3, 4. Chop, chop, chop.
It's cure of the what now?
Gather the ingredients.
Cure of the what now?
Not much time to prep before it's time to start the show.
Oh!
Guests are arriving.
Cure of the what now?
Everybody's smiling.
Cure of the what now?
A tasty party starting. Now it's time to go. Woo!
Ooh, served hot and fresh.
Itadakimasu! Hello, fellow babies upon whose shoulders rests the fate of the world, and welcome to this special episode of
Cure of the what now? Yum! Season 2, episode 35. Wait. Episode 36.
Nice one, babe. This is the one show where we know sometimes you have to take a firm hand with your magical flying child.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, you gotta set the expectations, you gotta follow them. My name is Kat, and I don't want to eat this vegetable, and you can't make me, no matter how passionate the farmer is.
What if he's really hot as well?
I'm really tempted to say something cursed here, but I'm just going to say no.
Okay, so no vegetables for you, a specific vegetable that you hate.
Exactly.
No matter how hard people try to convince you.
Please note, I'm a pretty big vegetable fan, actually. It's fruits that are violently disgusting. I will fight all fruits.
And I'm your co-host, Joel, and also, I am a really buff grandpa. Perhaps a reference to Master Roshi, or perhaps just a really buff guy, you know? Just super daddy-o over here.
Thank you for reminding me of the best part of these episodes.
Absolutely.
Joel, we usually start these episodes with a lead-in discussion. I'm drawing a blank. We've got a whole list here.
Yeah, I totally added a couple. We've had a list since the beginning, but I think we've covered most of them. But let's just cover the top one on here. I don't think that we've done this before. What about a PreCure season where they're cosplayers?
I love where you're going with this. May I present to you Happiness Charge PreCure?
I think that might be pretty close because they're all about fashion, but until we've seen it, we won't know. And then also there's a chance that it's not exactly the same. Because I'm thinking that, like, with a cosplay specific, you could have them bonding over characters from different shows. I know that there are elements of, what's that show? The one.
Dress Up Darling?
Dress Up Darling, yes. There's elements of Dress Up Darling that make some people uncomfortable. I think it's fairly tame compared to a lot of anime, but unfortunately that statement doesn't mean much.
You heard it here first, folks. Joel has watched a lot of degenerate shit.
I'm aware of a lot. But anyways, I think it would be interesting that you could have, like, preps for upcoming cons. They could bond over their favorite series that they watch. They could talk about how their fictional characters are their heroes. It would be a little bit meta about how PreCure can also speak to young girls. And then you could also have fun little episodes where maybe a character or two, or maybe the whole team, I don't know, act in character. And you just get to see them, you know, being wildly different than how they normally are.
I love that. I think that kind of the main theme of the season would be self-expression.
Yes, absolutely.
What kind of villains are you imagining? Like, I like the idea of just wildly over-the-top villains, like a Jesse and James duo.
Okay. I like the idea of them also kind of being cosplay, like maybe they're some sort of like shapeshifters. You know, they could watch whatever show the girls are currently cosplaying or whatever, and they could transform into villains from that show and try to take on their traits and stuff like that. I think they would also maybe perhaps, have they done a season like this before? They could do a season where, or the bad guys could, like, steal creativity from people. I kind of feel like that's sort of what they're going with Twisted Imagination from Star Twinkle, but at the same time, it wasn't exactly the same thing. I'm thinking, like, they become, like, gray and white people who are just, like, why should I paint? There's no point in beautiful colors, or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. Almost like the little Nen dolls from Kira Kira. Nen!
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Your children, how could you forget?
I just didn't associate them with, like, being not creative, but I did say gray, and they're, you know, gray, purplish, whatever color they are.
Yeah, just the blank, same-faced.
Okay, so I think that the obvious idea for a mentor / potentially secret ranger, sixth ranger character would be someone who's, like, really popular, like a mini celebrity who just does all of, like, the most amazing cosplays, and they, like, have, like, the most followers on Instagram or something. And you could even have an episode, now that I think about it, where they meet another cosplayer who's kind of down on themselves because they didn't have enough time to prepare their costume, or it didn't come out quite right, or their day's not going quite so well. And then the girls could be a ray of positivity for them.
I like that a lot. I
right.
think that'd be good. I like the idea of this being a slightly larger team, like 4 or 5, as opposed to the smaller duos and trios.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then, maybe they have a favorite superhero girl show, and each of them dresses up as one.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I also like the idea of the fairy showing up in the first episode and being like, you're going to become a PreCure. And they're just like, oh, like this one show, like they're loving it. I think, was it Smile where the main girl was like really into it and like already knew what a transformation was? So.
You know what's funny?
What's that?
We are talking about PreCure and have just referenced Dress Up Darling, a show that has a reference to Heartcatch PreCure in it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. If you haven't seen the show, she decides she wants to cosplay a magical girl.
Yes, and the magical girl show she watches feels very Doki Doki inspired. There's like an evil...
Heartcatch.
What?
Feels very Heartcatch
Oh,
inspired.
yeah. Sorry, everyone. My brain is full of holes. It's very Heartcatch related because there's an evil PreCure character who kind of looks a lot like Yuri, and then it's all about like, using love and togetherness to convert her back to the normal side.
There are flowers and...
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's a whole thing. Are we ready to move on to the succinct summary?
I think so.
We watched 4 episodes of Doki Doki this week. It was a wild, dokalicious time.
All right, patent pending on Dokalicious. We watched episodes 35 through 38, and next week, Delicious Party will be returning, so we'll be covering Delicious Party 35. We'll be covering 2 more episodes of Doki Doki, 39 and 40. We get 1 more episode of Glitter Force to go with the Doki Doki episodes, episode 24, and we also get the Doki Doki movie. The list that I was using the other day when I checked, it seemed to be down, which is unfortunate because it was a really nice list. It said, Futariwa episodes 1 through 6, Futariwa movie, Futariwa 7 through 39, special crossover movie with Mega Man, and then, so it was laid out in perfect chronological order. I found another list, and it might not be down permanently, I forgot to check again, but it said that we should have watched the movie around episode 38, and would you look at that? We covered that this week. Succinct summary time. If you'll recall, episode 34 ended with Makoto getting a call on her mirror phone. And so she answers it, and it's Princess Angelica or Anne or whatever her name is. And she basically says, hey, listen, I serves as both the sword of justice and the shield against darkness. She's not called that, but that's basically her 2 purposes. 1, she makes the warriors of light stronger. 2, she repels the power of darkness. But what this also means is that when she's crying, she no longer can suppress the power of darkness, and instead, darkness gets stronger. So we enter kind of a little mini arc that might or might not be finished at the end of these 4 episodes, but it's all about making sure that Ai is raised with love and to be selfless, not to grow up and be an evil, jerk, selfish baby. In the first episode, we focus on Makoto, who didn't know what cavities were and didn't know about earth bacteria. I guess they just don't have to brush their teeth over in Splendoria or Trumpland. And so she has a cavity. Everyone's like, you gotta go to the dentist. But the drills scare her and she runs away. And her being afraid and unable to confront her fears makes Ai start crying and the bad guys get stronger. She realizes that it's her duty to be a good role model for Ai. She gets over her fears of dentists, and the day is saved. Hooray! The next episode is about Rory getting a crush, or Raquel. Geez, I'm actually better at remembering their names in the Glitter Force dub than the sub. Raquel gets a crush on a human girl because he transformed into his middle school form and helped her find her bunny, and she thanked him and called him a hero, and he was like, yeah. And so like a big fuss is made about Raquel having a crush on a human. At the end of the episode, it turns out that she actually already has a boyfriend, and he's kind of sad about that. But then he falls in love with Rachel, Rika, who I kind of thought he already, like, kind of was explicitly in love with her. But okay, whatever. Nice little note to end the episode on. In episode 37, now we get Aguri's turn to be making bad decisions that affect Ai's growth.
Wait a second. This episode feels familiar. Did we do this already?
we might have already done this. So you remember that Futariwa episode where Nagisa had to do her senior project on talking about something and she chose apple farming, and you of course remember the episode of Delicious Party when Kome Kome couldn't stand green beans or whatever it was, green peppers. I got the first part of the word right.
So they go to a farm.
And they learn to appreciate it. And in this episode, Aguri won't eat carrots, but they eventually go to a farm. There's a scene with just manure and just like raw hands touching poo, which is gross. But then eventually Aguri realizes that she can get over her fear of carrots because, I don't know, they put a lot of work into making sure that carrots taste good. And then Ai is back to being selfless again. Hooray!
Yay! Aguri has a moment in this episode. You know what? We'll discuss it. Go on.
Absolutely. Episode 38. Belle comes up with a plan to lure Ai away with finger puppets and bribe her with juice and cookies and unlimited playtime, and she becomes mob boss Ai. But then Mana's like, hey, I love you and I'll always be there for you. And then Ai goes, oh my gosh, and they get a super powerful friendship love laser beam, I suppose would be a better word for it. And they use that to destroy the blood rings. And they defeat Super Belle, who was on screen just all too briefly before he was defeated.
Did they... We'll discuss it. Never mind.
This is the Succinct Summary section, where we try to succinctly summarize.
We're trying to succinctly summarize the succinctness.
Yes. The last thing to note is that Regina has come back. She opened her eyes at the end of, I think it was 37, and at the end of 38, after the three mercenary trio have been defeated and the blood rings are gone, she shows up and she's like, oh, you fools, you're useless without me. And that's kind of like the cliffhanger that the episodes end on. And those have been your Succinct Summaries!
Excellent job, as always.
Do you want to start with Doki Doki, or should we start instead with Doki Doki?
We could start with Doki Doki this time.
Okay.
Really mix it up a little. What was your favorite episode from this set?
I think the wacky hijinks of kidnapping a baby with finger puppets, well, not kidnapping, luring out of the house with finger puppets, I think that has the most entertainment value, but the Makoto episode also reinforced my dislike of dentists. So.
You do like it when people affirm your previously held beliefs.
Yeah, like Little Shop of Horrors has the masochist dentist.
Sadist.
Yes. The sadist dentist, and it's like, this is what all dentists are like. If you're listening and are a dentist or a fan of dentists, this is kind of hyperbole, but I definitely prefer going to regular doctors to dentists.
Joel and I have a long-standing argument over which is worse, regular doctors or dentists, and like, I've never had a bad experience with a dentist. You know why, Joel? Because I brush my teeth.
I brush my teeth too, and every time I've ever had a cavity, they always go, is this the cavity? And they jam the hook even harder in because they really enjoy hearing people scream and cry.
See, I've never had a cavity in my life, so all of my experiences with dentists have been positive ones, except for that time he decided to just pull one of my teeth without warning me.
That's awful.
Anyway...
Which of these episodes were your favorite?
My favorite was the Rory Raquel episode.
Okay.
Rory Raquel. His
Rory
name is
/
Raquel.
Raquel.
Rory is the Glitter Force version, and there was no Glitter Force this week. I really like episodes where you just get to like be with the characters and see what they're like. This was very much like a fanfic kind of episode. But him having a crush on a human girl was great shenanigans. And Dobby, of all people, being like, love is not love. This is an illegal love, and I'm banning it.
I see, when you said Dobby, of all people, Dobby's the oldest of the fairies if you go based off of the ages when they transform, and I think Lance would be the youngest by that metric, and so it makes sense that she would forbid it. It's kind of interesting that a fairy would fall in love with humans, and I wonder, does this technically... Now, I know there are some seasons that deal with romance, but typically, from the seasons I've seen, they don't really dive into it because it's a little bit too mature, you know, kissing and dating and holding hands and all that. But if there were a rule at Toei, or an unofficial taboo against showing relationships or having the PreCures, like, date someone, does a fairy technically circumvent that, do you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Especially if it's a boy fairy. I couldn't tell you why, but...
But I found it really cute. I think that it's interesting. Like, the thing that kind of got me was the episode started with Raquel saying, I want to be useful. And that was also kind of the theme the last time he turned into a human. And then this girl calls him her hero, and he gets a huge crush on her. And I get that the idea is that Raquel is this, like, super, like, wants to be helpful character, but I felt like there was a bit of a disconnect. He didn't really discover how to be useful. He just discovered that he had strong feelings for a girl. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of my feelings on that. What do you want to go in order, or do you want to just talk about the specific things that we liked?
I like going in order just to cover all of our bases.
All right, tell me about Doki Doki 35. You succinctly summarized already,
Yes.
but kind of give me your thoughts.
I was uncomfortable by the disdain in this episode. The disdain was a tooth that had cavities and was starting to decay. And, like, I know cavities are bad, but, like, I don't need it on screen. And it was just kind of like, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was icky.
We can play a fun little game where we return to Aguri and we once again ask ourselves, what is her connection to everything else going on? You are still of the opinion, I assume, of the two kind of brains represented by Aguri and Regina.
Yes.
Okay. What I found interesting in this episode, so there's the scene where Makoto isn't willing to transform because the sound of the drill scares her, and she's hiding, but Cure Ace, pinned against the wall, kind of looks at her and kind of plays stern parent, I guess, where it's like, you have to remember your duty to the Trump kingdom. You have to stand up and you have to fight and you have to do your duty. And Makoto, for a moment, briefly, like, superimposes the image of Princess Anne over Ace. And I think we might have noticed, but if we had, I'd forgotten, but their hair is identical, Cure Ace and Cure.
Yeah, you remember when Cure Ace first showed up, I was convinced that she was the princess.
That's true.
That's why, because they look so similar. And I mean, it could turn out that I was on the right track with the id-ego thing, but it's not Aguri and Regina, it's Aguri and Princess Mary Anne.
Oh, yeah. Or what it could be, so I assumed that there was a character who got transformed, or if it was going to be that Regina and Aguri were two halves of the same whole, that there was a character who was kidnapped and split apart, and maybe that could be maybe there was a second princess. Maybe Aguri is actually Angelica's sister. I'm getting some kind of family connection now that we've had them looking so much alike. The other possibility is, I don't know, maybe there was a PreCure and Angelica or Marie or whatever her name is, and Aguri were kind of channeling that same spirit.
Oh, I like that a lot as well. I was thinking maybe the princess's earthly body is trapped in the crystal, but her
The Holy
life
Spirit,
or whatever is Aguri.
Okay, yeah. We're going to get answers to these questions eventually, but I get the feeling that they're all going to come at once.
We're in the end game now.
Absolutely. Anything else about this episode that stuck out to you?
I just feel bad for Makoto.
Yeah.
Like, as a chronic doctor visit avoider.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, I get there's a couple of different things going on. Children, I think, are usually more afraid of the dentist than, like, teenagers or adults, typically. And so the, age group of the intended audience is a bit younger, so they're trying to give kids a reason to want to go to the dentist or not be afraid of going to the dentist. But at the same time, in universe, there's, like, 3 girls that are, like 12 to 14, somewhere in there, and Aguri's a little younger. And they're like, we gotta go to the dentist, and they'll heal you right up, kind of selling the positives of going there. But they don't mention that there's going to be a drill, or that there's going to be, like, oh yeah, you might be hurt temporarily for getting rid of the long-term pain,
So here's my question to you, someone who has experienced cavities. I thought they numbed you before they put a drill in your mouth.
They do, I think. Well, it depends on the size of the cavity, I think.
Gotcha. Because I was going to say, like, it still hurts even with the numbing stuff.
They put a needle in your gums to numb it. So, like,
I've had that happen.
That hurts. But yeah, I think that they were trying to play up the scary, but also they could have done a better job of prepping her. You don't send your friends into unknown territory if you can help it.
Absolutely, absolutely. If I had a friend who was, like, a grown adult and had never been to the dentist and didn't know what the dentist was for, I'd be like, okay, let's start at the beginning here. Also, let's get you an appointment with the sleep dentist because your mouth is probably a mess and you do not want to be awake for that.
Absolutely. So then we get to move on to the Rory episode.
Really quick, one more thing I wanted to shout out from this episode. I love that Makoto didn't know what toothpaste was for, despite having done a commercial for it. And she was just so baffled. She was like, you're supposed to use that to what?
And then the other girls were confused. You were in an ad with toothpaste, but you didn't know what it was. And then it turns out that apparently, even though she was confused as to what she was supposed to be using the toothpaste for, she has been brushing, but she was doing a bad job of it. Whereas Aguri, because she had mind parasited into grandma's life, she had a human show her how to brush her teeth and that sort of a thing.
Exactly. Now we can move on.
Absolutely. Shout out to the Rory episode having one of those two-seater swan boats be the disdain that like shot out like dirty water out of its mouth.
Yeah, because it wasn't a boat. It was the bathroom was also in the shape of a swan.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The bathroom for this swan boat rental place is in the shape of a swan boat. So they're like, oh no, it's a potty the entire episode. And I could not take it seriously, but it sprays poop into the lake.
It sprays sludge, but yeah, that's what it's kind of supposed to represent. And there's this lake that this girl that Raquel has a crush on, and she wants to clean it, and then it gets dirty. And he's like, now I must fight. Before, we were just saving people's lives, but this time, we're saving one particular hot lady's life. I also really liked that Raquel, through his strong feelings, is actually able to pull Cure Diamond by the hip to cause her to do like a butt attack to defeat the boat. And she's super grumpy in the background after she's kind of been like forced into the attack or whatever. Rory has a red mark on the side of his face as he's talking to this girl. But the other thing that I really like is that this also a little bit showed the bond between Rika and Raquel at the end of the episode when he realizes that the girl that he likes isn't into him and is dating someone else. Rika kind of shows up and it's like, now, we should go home. Didn't you have fun today? And there was a part during the fight with the disdain where she's like, I'll support you no matter what. She kind of smiles and like, let's save this lake. So I do really like their bond. I think that those two feel like they have the strongest bond of the first three girls. I think Dabi and Makoto also have a strong bond, clearly.
Absolutely. Dabi and Makoto have a weird, like, mom thing going on.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones feel more like siblings.
Siblings or partners or, yeah, that kind of a thing. Okay. Anything else from 35 or 36? Okay. Moving on to episode 37. Here's my main problem with this episode.
Where is it? Is it under the recording device?
Yes, absolutely. It's standing right behind you.
Yeah!
Okay. Aguri says that carrots are her most hated enemy. And her grandma is all like, whenever I make carrot and bardock, is that what
Burdock.
Burdock, that's right. Bardock is the saying based off of that vegetable. But whenever I make it, she eats around the carrots. And at the end of the episode, it's resolved when Aguri decides to eat a carrot. Now, Green Pepper, who was it? Kokone. When Kokone was like, I have a tragic past with green peppers, she was shown eating one and not liking the taste. But as far as we know, Aguri has never once eaten a carrot. She didn't say, like, I don't like the taste, I don't like the texture. She was just like, these killed my parents.
Maybe she's biased against things that are orange.
Maybe, yeah. I think it's weird because, like, there's lots of foods that I won't eat, but I could say, like, it smells bad, I don't like the way it looks, or whatever, you know?
Well, and carrots are a particularly odd vegetable to have be, like, the vegetable the child doesn't like, and I thought this about Love not liking carrots as well. But, like, carrots are sweet. Like, they're mostly sugar, and so it's weird to me that you wouldn't pick, like, a bitter vegetable.
Yeah, well, and eventually they did for Delicious Party, and, like, my view of carrots is that they basically have little taste or texture. You know, celeries have kind of like a stringy texture, broccolis have kind of like the leafy texture, like most other vegetables I could kind of squint and understand why people don't like them, but carrots are just kind of like the least offensive.
They're sweet crunch.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what? No. The least offensive vegetable is the cucumber, because that literally tastes like nothing.
I think I'd prefer carrots to cucumbers, but maybe you're right overall. What about peas? I think peas have a strong flavor compared to other vegetables.
I wouldn't say they're, like, the least offensive, but peas, again, are another vegetable that I consider sweet.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you stop drinking soda and eating candy, you just enjoy nature's sugar.
Yeah, maybe that could be. But we live in America where it's everyone's right to down as much soda as they want.
God, I have discovered recently that dairy makes me really sick, and I've eaten like 4 dairy-filled truffles today because they were there, and I'm so sick, but they were so worth it.
Everyone, please take care of your bodies. Try not to eat things that you know will make you sick, but obviously you can do what you want so long as you're of legal age. How old do you have to be legally before you get to choose what you eat? Because voting, that like changes democracy and stuff, but like, or going to war, you know, or smoking cigarettes. But like, what you eat, I think the bar should be lower.
I am in favor of child-led eating, and so I think that you should be able to decide what goes in your mouth at whatever age.
Absolutely. Okay, absolutely.
No, I actually wanted to point that out. When we were watching this episode, I leaned over to Joel and I was like, did you know that the current trend in dietitians with children is not to force them to eat anything? It's called child-led eating, and basically the idea is you present them with a plate full of varied foods, right? And nothing is off limits, but you don't push anything, and you're not like, you have to eat that before you have this. And over time, children will naturally try things that they see people around them eating. And then there's no like force behind it, and so there's no pushback from the child.
Okay, yeah, I like that. They have nothing to oppose necessarily, kind of a thing.
My brother ate every vegetable when he was a baby because they were green, and that was his favorite color. So it was never a problem getting him to eat vegetables.
Interesting. I apparently, my parents like to point out that I really liked beets when I was like baby before I could talk, but then eventually I got old enough and I just don't like the way they look. They're something about them.
They look like organs.
Yeah, and so they're always a little surprised that changed so drastically. Oops. I guess I've been pointing out every disdain, every episode, something about them. This episode was, like, the grandma's sweets house from, like, fairy tales, like a house made out of, like, gingerbread and stuff, and, it opens up its door mouth and, like, it spews, like, a sweet scent, and it draws eye in. It's, like, the perfect,
honey pot?
Yeah, honey pot or, anglerfish for getting eye, and then, Aguri has to jump in there, and then she gets surrounded by angry, spooky carrot ghosts.
Ooh, carrots! And then Aguri is like, nope. I'm gonna do it, you watch me,
Yes. The other thing I loved about this is that Makoto, 2 episodes ago, was told, like, hey, you've gotta not suck it up, kinder words than that, but basically, like, you have a duty. And in this episode, they're like, Aguri, you have a duty. And she's like, I can't. It's a carrot. You know, one of them is a guy has a drill and is going to put it inside your body, right? Like, that just sounds like it would be awful. Or you could eat a carrot.
Hear me out.
Yeah.
If you presented me with the following options, drill in your mouth or take a single bite of a banana, I would choose the drill.
Okay, that's fair. If they had pointed out that she hates it that much, like if there was a reason behind it, I'd be able to believe it more. Does that make sense? It kind of goes back to my earlier point.
That's fair.
But yes, absolutely. I wonder like what actual food, you know, because you could be like, eat this wet boot, and like everyone would be like, no. But like, is there an actual genuine food that most people eat that I would be like, no, please, I'd rather go to the dentist?
Mint?
I'd eat it if it meant saving the world, though, I think.
The problem with you is that despite not liking things, you largely aren't picky.
I'd say so,
like,
yeah.
You will eat whatever food item people put in front of you, whether you like it or not. And so I don't think anything could. Maybe haggis.
Maybe haggis or blue cheese, or blue cheese. That is not my favorite thing. The other thing that we found out in this episode that's heavily implied is that Mana's grandpa is King Aguri's grandma.
Yep.
They were flirting with each other.
They were, yep. They are absolutely having creepy old people.
Whoa, okay.
You used the word.
You can censor that out. I can censor that out. I will censor it out.
You can censor the word. It'll be creepy old lady, ah! Or creepy old people, ah.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else from this episode?
I don't think so.
We briefly mentioned it, but the farmer was hot, and he looked like he was drawn from, like, another anime. He looked like he could have been, Megalobox or Future Joe. I think he kind of looks like that style.
He reminded me of, like, 90s anime, which Megalobox, I feel like, was kind of drawn in the style of a lot of those older animes, like Cowboy Bebop. But yeah, he didn't fit with the PreCure aesthetic. Now, Joel, this is really interesting because we once again accidentally picked a set of episodes that all kind of goes together and all kind of, like, wraps up nicely.
Absolutely. Yeah, we started with, here's why you need to teach Ai to be selfless, don't ever let her become selfish, and then we get Belle saying, I'm going to unleash my ultimate plan to make her selfish.
Belle? No. You know what? I'm going to start with, Joel told me when we sat down to watch this episode, you are not prepared for where this episode goes. And I was like, okay, shenanigans. But then Belle takes the blood rings back from Ira and Marmo and absorbs their powers and gets all buff.
Yes.
And no, I was not prepared for big buff.
Like, I need to point this out. He literally warps into a grotesque, like, unnatural form where, like, his upper half is, like, kind of, like, inflated or, like, kind of balloony, but then it solidifies into a topless, buff grandpa who calls himself Super Belle. And I wanted to say that that's really strange, but then I realized that strong old men with biceps, like, that's been around, that's in Dragon Ball Z, that's in One Piece, like, that's actually kind of a staple of shonen anime, but not in PreCure.
I want from you, as my husband, as you age, is to get more buff with each passing year. That's all I ask.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll definitely get on that and make sure that I'm eating the protein-infused sodas as I work my way towards getting all the cavities.
Protein!
So, I got a question.
Okay.
Do we think, like, okay, Regina shows up, and she's very strong and the girls can't beat her. But then, when she becomes Super Regina, Ace shows up and defeats her immediately, so bad that she has to go into, like, a coma or a Super Saiyan healing pod or a Saiyan healing pod. Then they bring in 2 new generals that are really strong. They get beaten and their power gets absorbed into the other 3. They become stronger for a moment, and now they've been reduced in power, and Regina is back. I guess I fail to see how this is a bigger threat.
King Selfish put more ego-G into her while she was in the pod.
Oh, gotcha. So it wasn't just healing from the battle, it was also, like, buffing her up some more.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I wish that she had gotten a slightly different color palette, you know?
Yes, I agree. I also think maybe she should have eaten Belle.
Yes, absolutely. That would have been really good metaphor, because, Belle's like, oh, I'm going to absorb the power of all of these other people, and then I will become numero uno! And I think it would have been good if that power had been turned against him, or if, like, Regina had shown up and be like, oh, Belle, you think you're so clever, and then she puts, like, a hand on him and, like, starts siphoning his strength.
Absolutely. The finger puppets were great.
They were so good.
I love that I was just like, wee, puppets!
Okay, so I told you you're not ready for this episode, and there's 2 things in it that I was specifically referring to. Super Belle, at the end of the episode, but at the beginning of the episode, it's the bowling alley that the Jinkochi, the selfish people, are living in, and Belle is reading a book on how to parent, and the other 2, Marmo and Hiro, are just like, are you reading a book about babies? What is wrong with you? And he says something like, her name is I. So I literally thought that he was going to become a good parent in this episode somehow. That's not where it ended up going, but I love Belle actually doing research and trying to figure out, like, oh, you should learn her name if you want to get her to like you.
Strategic thinking. We love to see it.
Absolutely. I think that's just about everything from this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to steamroll right on through, but I'm ready for some love letters.
Some Doki Doki love bottles and a message from the crew.
Yes, and you got the extra ones that James threw in the Discord last minute, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we did a watch together with James last week, and he saw the 4 Doki Doki episodes with me. That's how I was able to warn Catherine, like, you're not ready for this, because Catherine couldn't make it to the watch together. But his 2 thoughts were, what a great premise, having I, like, lured away by puppets and being convinced to kind of be selfish. I think it's very easy to convince a baby to be selfish, because that's kind of their natural disposition already. And, kids want juice and cookies and don't understand why they can't have more cookies. I also like how they brought I back from the brink of being evil, It's Mana being like, I will always be there for you, I'll protect you, I'm fulfilling the mom role, and the reason that Belle couldn't keep hold of her is because her cries were, like, destroying the buildings around them, and he was like, no, I'd rather sacrifice the baby and save myself, whereas Mana's like, I will protect baby. And so that was a really good episode. I loved it. And then the other thought from James is, I can't believe they showed a girl picking up manure barehanded in a kid's show. I don't know why kid's show is, important. I mean, I guess there's certain things that you don't show, like, blood in PreCure as well. So, I thought that was kind of weird. When we watched it, we were wondering what your reaction would be, because you are known to be a bit of a neat freak. And that sort of a thing.
It's amazing that I've given even James that impression from across the country.
Yes.
Just via this podcast. But no, I mean, here's the thing about manure, right? And about the dung of herbivores in general. It's mostly grass. Like, it barely even counts as poop. It's just picking up mud at that point. I personally would not touch it with my bare hands, but that's because I wouldn't touch mud with my bare hands.
Yeah, see, when the guy was like, here's fertilizer, and one of the girls goes like, you don't mean... I was like, okay, here comes a poop joke, and that's kind of what it was. And then it was like, then they're just going to put on gloves, and they're going to use fertilizer. That's how farmers do it. And then he goes, no, you have to use your bare hands. And that's when I kind of went, like, that triggered me a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I have a very vivid memory from when I was like 12, and I was in our backyard collecting moss for one of my frog habitats or something, and I had gloves on, and my dad's like, why do you have gloves on? And I was like, so I don't touch the dirt. And he's like, that's ridiculous. And I was like, you're ridiculous and dirty.
Absolutely. Do you have any predictions other than Regina's going to be powerful?
Before we get to predictions, I just wanted to shout out another love letter Doki Doki thought from AU. The sound effects, this is a reference to last week's episode. The sound effects in JoJo are Goro Goro. I don't know where you got Mura Mura from, but it means horny. Now, you definitely said Muda in the episode, which we all know means useless, but I thought that was really funny. That you could have just been like, the JoJo's people walk around going, horny, 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 horny.
I listen, if there's any mangaka out there who's going to do that, it would be Araki. I respect the work that he's created, but he is a weird guy.
He is very in touch with his own aesthetic.
Yes, absolutely. Anyone who names their character, what was it, like King Speed Raceway or like Maximum or Sports Maximum, that was the guy's name. No one on Earth has that name, and if they do, their parents did not love them or they didn't love themselves if they went to the court to change their name legally. And that has been your doot final thought. Outro goes here. Thanks for listening, everyone, and don't let your babies become mobsters.
Or do. Depends on your end goal.
Okay, strategic thinking.
Thank you all for joining us for another delicious plateful of
Cure of the What Now.
Please take a moment to rate and review wherever you get your podcasts from.
Or if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to leave a comment, a like, or lick that subscribe bell so you know when the new episodes are going up.
Did you just say lick it?
Well, yeah, we're baking delicious foods. It's a delicious party.
Anyway, you can find me on Twitter at PirateGhostHost. Please don't lick me.
Can you even lick a ghost? I'm on Twitter at Cotwin_pod.
KOTWN_pod.
Absolutely. And as always, the Discord link is in the Twitter bio and also in the YouTube description.
Come join us for weekly discussions, streams, and all of the PreCure your heart can handle. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yum. Or no, I'm full.